Growing up in Lansing, Illinois, I quickly learned that survival wasn't a given. It was something you had to fight for. My father's mistreatment hardened me, while my mother's silence forced me to become self-sufficient. By the time I hit my teenage years, I was well-versed in maneuvering through the unforgiving streets of Chicago's South Side, where ambition and cunning often decided who thrived and who got left behind. While many clung to the traditional path to success, I saw potential in less conventional, sometimes questionable, opportunities. That rough upbringing shaped my mindset for the battles ahead. Years later, I channeled that same resilience into legitimate businesses, real estate, vending services, and a coin exchange venture spanning the region. My financial success soared, but my personal life spiraled in the opposite direction. At first, marrying Sophia felt like a dream, but as time passed, our ambitions diverged. While I preferred a simpler life, she craved more luxury, more status, more of everything. Her betrayals multiplied, and my unwillingness to surrender fueled a conflict neither of us could escape. When the dust settled, the court sided with her in nearly every way imaginable. I was ordered to pay $2,000 a month in alimony, $1,000 in child support, and shoulder the cost of the mortgage and health insurance until our daughter, Isabella, reached adulthood, or longer, if she pursued college. Altogether, my obligations stacked up to over $6,500 a month. Meanwhile, Sophia, whose extramarital affairs with her firm's lawyers were an open secret, had masterfully played the system, leaving me financially crippled. My name is Ethan Rivera. My ex-wife is Sophia, and our daughter, Isabella, she's everything to me, my pride, my joy, my little girl. Whenever I had the chance, I took her out for fun. She even told the judge she wanted to live with me, but he ignored her. The entire process felt rigged. Sophia had a steady job. She didn't need me footing the bill for the mortgage, let alone the additional payments. I felt robbed, and I had a gut feeling the judge was biased. But I wasn't about to roll over and accept it. Instead, I started plotting my revenge. Growing up in Lansing taught me one thing. If someone wrongs you, you make sure they regret it. Some call me an entrepreneur. I just see opportunities and seize them. Sure, not all my early endeavors were above board, but today, I own rental properties, vending machines, and a coin-changing business, similar to Coinstar, operating throughout Chicagoland and northern Indiana. That last venture? It gave me an idea, one that would make Sophia's life just a little more difficult. When the first spousal support payment came due, I decided to comply, but on my terms. I arranged for an armored truck to deliver the entire amount in coins. When Sophia opened the door, flanked by one of her lawyer friends, the guards unloaded sack after sack of loose change onto her pristine marble floor. The neighbors gathered, drawn by the commotion, as Sophia erupted into screams. Standing across the street, I filmed the spectacle, grinned, and waved. "Enjoy your money, strumpet," I shouted before driving off. The fallout didn't take long. That Tuesday, a man approached me and asked, "Are you Ethan Rivera?" I ignored him. He repeated the question, louder this time, then snapped a picture of me as he tossed a subpoena at my feet. "You've been served," he muttered before walking away. I waited until he was gone, then picked it up. Court was scheduled for the following Wednesday, 1 week to prepare. I spent that time making calls, setting up meetings, and strategizing. More importantly, I took Isabella out to lunch. She was furious with her mother, calling her selfish and manipulative. "I don't want to live with her," she confided. "I want to be with you." Her mother refused to allow it. I promised Isabella that I'd fight for her, even if it meant jail time. "Please, Dad," she pleaded. "Just don't do anything crazy." I reassured her. Instead of reckless actions, I had already set up a trust in her name with her uncle as the trustee, ensuring every cent meant for her would go directly into her future, not her mother's pockets. "She doesn't deserve anything," Isabella said, her words carrying a maturity beyond her years. The day of court arrived. Isabella, my lawyer, and I sat waiting for our case to be called. When Sophia walked in with her attorney, she smirked at me. "You better play by the rules," she sneered. I leaned back and smiled. "Wait and see." As soon as the judge called my name, Isabella stood up first. "I want to live with my dad," she declared firmly. The judge wasn't having it. He reprimanded her tone and dismissed her request outright, citing an old psychiatric report that painted me in a questionable light. I was blindsided. Sophia had twisted a therapy session from years ago into a weapon, framing me as a danger to my own child. My lawyer objected immediately. There were never any charges filed, he argued. The judge shut him down, unwilling to reconsider. Then, Sophia's lawyer tried a different approach, claiming I hadn't paid child support. My attorney countered, presenting evidence that every payment had been deposited directly into Isabella's account, canceled checks and all. Isabella nodded, confirming it herself. Frustrated, Sophia's attorney pivoted, attacking my spousal payments. This method of payment is an undue hardship, he whined, referring to the coin stunt. The judge nodded in agreement. From now on, payments will be made by check. My lawyer wasn't about to let that slide. Your Honor, does the Chicago Police Department, a government entity, accept only cash or card for fines? The judge hesitated. If they can dictate their terms, why can't my client pay in legal tender? He pressed. The judge's face darkened. Clearly embarrassed, he straightened his robe and snapped, "This is my courtroom, and what I say goes." The judge's bias was blatant, written all over his smug face, but I could see Sophia and her lawyer scrambling. They weren't as confident anymore, cracks starting to show. This wasn't over, not even close. My vindictive streak had only just begun to surface. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the polished floor. My glare burned into the judge. Are you here to uphold the law, or just another puppet for my wife's law firm? Was she your strumpet too? The courtroom fell into stunned silence. The judge's face turned crimson, veins bulging at his temples. His gavel slammed down with the force of thunder. Mr. Rivera, you are in contempt of court. 6 months in Cook County Jail unless you apologize and comply with my conditions. I didn't even hesitate. Who are you? The king of this kangaroo court? Gasps echoed around the room. The judge's jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might crack. Bailiff, take him into custody. As the bailiff grabbed me, I turned to Sophia, my smirk sharp enough to cut glass. Good luck getting your money, witch. Her face twisted in fury and disbelief, her carefully crafted facade crumbling. She had no idea how much worse things were about to get. At the jail, the process was cold and mechanical, strip-searched, fingerprinted, processed like livestock. The guards tried to assert dominance, barking orders and flexing their authority. But at 6 feet 4 inches and 255 pounds, I wasn't easily intimidated. Years of hard labor had kept me strong, and my time in juvie had burned away any trace of fear long ago. I'd stared down worse than this. The next day, out in the yard, I kept to myself. You learn early that watching from the shadows keeps you alive. During dinner, leaning against the wall, I heard a familiar voice cut through the noise. Tax. I turned, surprised. Mason, an old friend from my reckless youth. We embraced briefly, drawing curious glances from other inmates. What the hell are you doing here? He asked, grinning. Told a judge he's an asshole, I said flatly. Mason laughed, shaking his head. How long they give you? 6 months. Unless I apologize. That's not happening. We found a quiet corner to catch up. I told him everything. Sophia, her smug lawyer friends, and the judge who thought he could crush me. I could see the spark of recognition in Mason's eyes. He knew me too well, especially my knack for revenge. They'll regret crossing me, I muttered, my voice low and steady. Mason nodded. You always had a plan. Texas need backup? Maybe. But for now, just having you here is enough. For the first time since this mess began, I felt a flicker of control return. That night, lying on my thin mattress, I stared at the cracked ceiling, memories flooding in. My childhood had been a training ground for survival. An abusive, drunken father, and a mother too scared to fight back. The streets were my refuge, filled with other kids just trying to make it through the day. We weren't a gang, not exactly. Just a bunch of lost kids doing what we had to. Petty theft, stolen cars, whatever it took to survive. Eventually, it caught up with me. I got locked up. Oddly enough, that was the turning point. Jail forced me to think beyond the next hustle. It made me realize I needed a plan, not just to survive but to thrive. By the time I was 20, I'd saved enough to buy my first foreclosed house. I renovated it, rented it out, and reinvested every dollar. At 22, I met Sophia at a club I can barely remember. It's probably condos now. She just moved from Seymour, Indiana, all small-town charm and bright-eyed ambition. We were opposites, but we clicked instantly. A year later, we were married. The following year, Isabella was born, named after Sophia's mother. I'd bought a house in Oak Forest, intending to rent it out, but Sophia fell in love with it. So, we made it our home. Over the next decade, we built a life there, raising Isabella, hosting neighborhood barbecues, renovating the house together. It felt like the American dream. Then Sophia got a job at a law firm, and everything changed. She outgrew our simple life, craving designer clothes, fancy dinners, and colleagues who stroked her ego. She started looking down on our neighborhood, sneering at the South Side like it was beneath her. The warmth in our home faded, replaced by cold ambition. Arguments became routine. Eventually, she pushed us to move north. Better schools, she claimed. But really, it was all about appearances. Isabella hated it. The kids were snobs, the neighborhood sterile and pretentious. She wanted to go back. So did I. But Sophia was exactly where she wanted to be. The unraveling began one night when she claimed she had a work event, a dance with colleagues. Suspicion gnawed at me. I tracked her phone, drove over, and stayed hidden in the shadows. I watched her dance provocatively with a group of men, her smile wide and carefree. In the restroom, I overheard two guys bragging about their escapades with her, quick hookups in cars, plans for real fun. Later that night, when I returned to the crowd, I saw her, locked in a passionate kiss with one of them, completely oblivious to everything but her own selfish desires. At 9:30, she texted me, claiming she was too drunk to catch the L and would crash at Emily's place. Then, a simple hollow message, "I'm sorry." She would be. I followed her as she left, hand in hand with a younger lawyer. They didn't notice me trailing them as they stumbled into his Lexus, laughing, kissing. My rage didn't explode. It simmered, cold, sharp, calculated. That's when I started planning. I tailed them to his apartment, memorizing every detail. When I got home, Isabella was waiting, her eyes filled with unspoken questions. I met her gaze. "We're leaving. Pack what you need." She hesitated. "What about Mom?" "There are other guys taking care of her now," I replied, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. She didn't need more explanation. She understood. In less than 3 hours, we packed up everything that mattered and headed to my vacant house in Oak Forest, back to the route Sophia had tried to escape. The next morning, my phone rang. "Sophia." "Ethan, what's going on? Where are you?" Her voice was sharp, trying to control the situation. "Home," I replied flatly. "Why?" She already knew. "I don't know you anymore, Sophia, and I don't want to." Her voice trembled slightly. "Where's Isabella?" "She's with me," I said firmly. "She doesn't want to live with you anymore," I told Sophia flatly. Her face twisted with disbelief and anger. "You can't just walk away from this, Ethan." "No, Sophia, but you're fun with other men? That's more than enough reason to leave." My voice was cold, final. "Expect divorce papers next week." Her response came like venom. "You Southsider piece of crap. My firm will destroy you." I smirked. "Maybe, but you haven't seen my full wrath yet." Over the next 6 months, Sophia never tried to reconcile, not even a hollow attempt. She flaunted her new relationships, dating lawyers like trophies, as if it would get under my skin. Isabella kept me updated, though. She told me about the late nights, the constant bad-mouthing, and Sophia's obsession with pushing Isabella to find a rich husband someday. Isabella wasn't having it. She defended me fiercely, saying she wanted to return to Oak Forest, to the life Sophia tried to erase. Lying in my jail cell, I knew Sophia probably thought she'd won. But I also knew she'd struggle. Managing the mortgage, health insurance, and spousal support without me wasn't as easy as she thought. Jail wasn't breaking me. It was giving me time to plan. One Thursday, 2 guards came for me. "You've got a video call," one grunted. I want my lawyer present, I snapped. They shoved me into a small room. You're not meeting the judge. You're being sentenced. Panic surged, but before I could protest, they locked the door. Minutes passed, then 6 inmates walked in. No introductions. No words. Just bad intentions. I stood, fists clenched. You'll regret this. One lunged. I broke his nose with a swift punch. The others piled on. I fought hard, punching, kicking, slamming bodies into walls. But they kept coming. A larger guy managed to get me in a chokehold. I fought until the darkness swallowed me. I woke up in the infirmary, my body screaming in pain. The nurse approached, her face calm but firm. I'm here to help you, she said. You can accept it or suffer. Her honesty disarmed me more than any punch could. I nodded weakly. Thank you. She brought me breakfast, freeing one of my hands so I could eat. Between bites, I whispered, Can I ask a favor? She raised an eyebrow. That depends. My friend Randall Turner. Can I see him? We'll see, she replied, non-committal but not dismissive. Later that day, Mason appeared, his face tightening when he saw me. Oh, hell, he muttered, pulling up a chair. I described the attack, the 6 inmates, the 2 guards who set it up. I need their full names. No nicknames. Real names. Mason hesitated. What are you planning? An eye for an eye, I said quietly, but with a twist. He saw the look in my eyes and didn't press further. Some things didn't need to be said aloud. I'll get the info, he promised. What else? That's it. I'll handle the rest. The next day, Mason slid me a small piece of paper. A list of names. He leaned in, his voice low. What are you going to do with this? The less you know, the better, I replied, folding the paper and tucking it into my waistband. Sunday brought an unexpected visit, Sophia and Isabella. The tension in the room was suffocating. So, how's life with your new cellmates? Sophia sneered, her tone dripping with mockery. I scowled. What do you want? Isabella insisted on coming, she said with a shrug, smirking like she'd already won. Ready to apologize yet? She added. Not a chance, I snapped. And stop feeding Isabella lies about me. You know they're not true. Her eyes gleamed with malice. How do I know that? She's unusually attached to you. I stared at her, disgust churning in my chest. You're vile. Go back to your boyfriends and leave me alone. She stood, satisfied with the damage she thought she'd inflicted, and walked out. But as she turned, I caught Isabella's face. Anger, heartbreak, and something stronger simmering beneath the surface. As soon as Sophia was gone, Isabella rushed to me, tears streaming down her face. Don't cry, sweetheart. It looks worse than it is, I whispered, pulling her into a gentle hug. I hate her, she sobbed. For lying. For making me live with her. She's horrible. I know, I said softly, stroking her hair. But you're strong. Just like me. She wiped her eyes, her expression hardening. Don't call me Isabella anymore. I'm Bella now. I don't want anything to do with her or her family. I smiled, pride swelling despite the pain. Bella, that's my girl. We talked for a while, the heaviness lifting with every word. Before she left, I leaned in. Can you do something for me? She nodded without hesitation. Anything, Dad. I handed her the folded list from Mason. She tucked it into her bra like a secret. Give this to Uncle Liam. Tell him to visit me. Liam, my younger brother, had always been the brains of the family. While I took the hits from our abusive father, Liam buried himself in computers, becoming an expert in things most people couldn't even begin to understand. Together, we made an unstoppable team, brawn and brains. Bella hugged me tightly before walking out, deliberately ignoring Sophia's attempts to get her attention. As they left, I heard Sophia mutter, "Stubborn girl," under her breath. On Tuesday, Liam came to visit. His eyes widened when he saw me, bruised, battered, but still standing. Looks better than Friday, I joked, flashing a crooked grin. Liam managed a faint smile, then leaned in, switching to the secret language we'd made up as kids, a mix of gibberish and code only we understood. Bella gave me a list, he whispered. What do you need? I leaned forward, my voice steady. Addresses. Wives, girlfriends, anyone close to them. Liam let out a low whistle. Oh, crap. Just get the info. Pass it to Logan. Tell him to visit me, but not with the list. Logan was an old friend from the neighborhood, someone who knew how to handle delicate matters. Liam nodded, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of concern. I'll take care of it. Anything else? Just visit when you can, I said. A friendly face helps. Liam frowned. Won't you be out soon? Not unless I apologize, I replied, my jaw tightening. And you know I won't. You've always been stubborn, he muttered. Kept you safe from Dad, didn't it? I shot back. He smiled, knowing I was right. I'll check in soon, Liam promised before leaving. Back in my cell, Mason gave me a knowing look. Things are about to get rough, Texas. They're watching, but they don't know why yet. The guards and the 6 inmates who attacked me made their threats clear with every glare. But they had no idea their reckoning was already in motion. A few days later, Logan showed up for a visit. He slid into the chair across from me, his usual calm demeanor hiding a sharper focus. Liam gave me this, he said, tapping the folded list. What's the plan? Did Liam tell you what they did to me? I asked. He nodded. Return the favor, I said coldly. Hit their loved ones. No DNA evidence. Use Steely Dan or his flexible cousins. Logan smirked. Do it all at once. Make sure they hear it loud and clear. Don't mess with Texas. He stood, nodding. I'll get my guys. A week later, the signs were obvious. 2 guards missing. One of the 6 inmates looking like his life had crumbled overnight. I didn't need confirmation. The plan had been executed. Word spread fast. Inmates started calling me Tex with respect, not mockery. The 6 kept their distance, their resentment burning in silence. Eventually, one snapped. He cornered me in the yard, fists clenched, trying to reclaim some dignity. You're a piece of crap, he spat. My girlfriend dumped me. Said she didn't want to risk getting hurt. Even said, don't mess with Texas. I smiled. Sounds like solid advice. Now your women know what it feels like. You hurt me. I hurt those you care about. Next time, it'll be your mother. His face paled, and he slinked back to his group without another word. Later, 2 guards confronted me. You think you're untouchable? We'll make your life hell, one of them hissed. I didn't flinch. Then I guess your wives better get used to new attention. One snapped, slamming me against the wall, fists flying. I didn't fight back, not this time. Let the cameras catch every punch. Let the inmates be witnesses. Eventually, another guard pulled him off me. The damage was done, on his record, not mine. In the infirmary, Beth, the nurse, gave me a familiar look. Trouble again? She asked, inspecting my bruises. I didn't fight back. He just snapped. There'll be an investigation, she said while bandaging me. He'll probably lose his job. One less corrupt guard, I muttered. Not all guards are bad, she replied. Some of us are here to help. Well, I shot back. They failed last time. She didn't argue, just finished patching me up and kept me overnight. The partner of the suspended guard glared at me from the hall but said nothing. He'd gotten the message, don't mess with Texas. Weeks passed without a visit from Bella. The silence gnawed at me. Finally, Liam showed up. Sophia's refusing to bring her, he said, frustration clear in his voice. That lit a fire in me. As if keeping me in jail wasn't enough, now she was keeping my daughter from me. At the end of the month, Sophia finally showed up, dragging Bella along. Bella's arms were crossed, her jaw set. Your daughter's impossible, Sophia snapped. She barely speaks to me. Just as stubborn as you. You've said that before, I replied. Maybe the judge should give her to me. I'd gladly take her. You're not getting her, Sophia shot back. She needs a good education to succeed. Oak Forest has good schools. She loved it there. Wilmette's better. She's meeting people who can help her future. Our daughter will create her own future without riding anyone's coattails, I said firmly. Sophia rolled her eyes. You're so stubborn you can't see the benefits. Sophia, we've had this conversation too many times. You're not changing my mind, and I'm not changing yours. So why are you here? I need spousal support. I have bills to pay. I kept my face calm. Figure it out yourself. No paycheck for me means no payments. Her face twisted with disbelief. What? I can't cover the bills with my income? Well, I shrugged. Maybe you should have thought of that before dragging me to court. You made things worse by paying me in coins. And now you're getting nothing because I'm in jail, I said flatly. You have to pay, she yelled. No, I don't. What are they going to do? Jail me again. I'm already here. She stormed out without another word. A moment later, Bella slipped back in, her grin faint but genuine. You really pissed her off, she said. She expects me to pay support from jail. Good luck with that. Bella chuckled. Then her face softened. How are you doing, Dad? I'm fine. How about you? Still not talking to your mom? Only when I have to, she admitted. When are you getting out? I'm not apologizing to that judge unless he gives you back to me. That's not happening. So, 6 months. Bella nodded, her smile fading. Next month's my birthday. I'd love to celebrate with you, but don't go against your principles. We'll celebrate when you're out. Her words hit me hard. But then she added, if a man has no principles, he has nothing. As Lincoln said, important principles may and must be inflexible. I blinked. Where'd you hear that? My school counselor, Dr. Carter. Some teachers noticed my grades slipping. Talking to him helped, with Mom, too. Even in my frustration, I had to admit, Wilmette schools had resources Oak Forest didn't. Well, I said, your mom seems upset with you, too. She's getting on my nerves. I just ignore her. Makes it worse, but I don't care. I chuckled softly. In a couple of months, she'll have bigger problems. That house? The bank won't let those loans sit unpaid. It'll probably be foreclosed within 3 months. Bella frowned. Won't that hurt your reputation? Honey, when you pay for most things in cash, you don't worry about credit. That mansion was the only thing I ever took a loan for. Really? Even with all your businesses? I use money from one to buy the next. Bella smiled warmly. Dad, I've always respected you. But now, I respect you even more. I smiled back. You always know how to cheer me up. Spending time with Bella was the best part of my days. Missing her birthday would be tough, but I knew she'd be okay. She was strong, just like her old man. The next week, I heard the guard who assaulted me had been fired. Hard to argue with video evidence showing I didn't even defend myself. A few days later, the other guard quit. Whether transferred or just gone, I didn't care. Inmates started thanking me for getting rid of him, and respect grew. More people called me Tex, and trouble seemed to fade, though the sixes still glared. Word was one of their wives filed for divorce, and 3 others got dumped. Funny how even the dumbest people can learn when it hurts enough. With retaliation lingering in the air and my status rising, they figured it was better to leave me alone. A couple of weeks later, I got a subpoena to meet with the judge via video. When the guard came to escort me, I refused. I won't go without my lawyer. But the judge is waiting. I don't care. Reschedule it. 3 days later, they informed me the meeting was set for the following week. I requested 30 minutes with my lawyer beforehand. They agreed. When we met, my lawyer seemed puzzled. They didn't tell me anything about this meeting. Feels off. Guess we'll find out, I replied. When the judge's face appeared on the screen, he looked irritated about the delay. I didn't care. To me, he was just another pompous guy in a robe. My lawyer spoke first. Your Honor, may I ask the purpose of this meeting? We weren't provided any details. The judge didn't bother hiding his disdain. Your client didn't need you. I just wanted to see if he was ready to apologize to the court for his outburst. My lawyer glanced at me. I leaned in and whispered my response. Your Honor, my lawyer said, he's not willing to apologize. In fact, he believes you owe him an apology. Additionally, he requests primary custody of his daughter. The judge's face twisted in disbelief. Why would I apologize? And no, my custody decision stands. Then we're done here, my lawyer replied, standing up. If my client changes his mind, we'll let you know. The judge's face darkened. One more thing, he snapped. Here we go, I thought. Your client isn't honoring the divorce decree. When does he plan to make the spousal support and mortgage payments? I whispered to my lawyer, who relayed my message calmly. He doesn't intend to make any payments while incarcerated. But the house will be foreclosed, the judge argued. It's not my house, I replied bluntly. Maybe my wife's mansion, but not mine. I never wanted it. That will ruin your credit and cost you all your equity, the judge warned. A small price to see my favorite ex-wife walking the streets where she belongs. I shot back with a smirk. Maybe her lawyer friends can cover the payments. The judge's face darkened. I'd hit a nerve. You worthless Southside scum, he snapped. Who do you think you're talking to? Calm down, I replied coolly. I think I'm talking to the man who enjoyed my wife's company. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I just don't see why anyone uninvolved would care so much. I stood to leave, satisfied with the blow. As the guard escorted me out, I heard the judge yell, "Counselor, your client just earned 2 more months in jail. If he keeps disrespecting me, I'll make his life a living hell." I smiled. The guard's shocked face said it all. Back in my cell, it hit me. The judge knew details about the mortgage that only Sophia's circle would discuss. Interesting. Their time would come. The following Sunday, Sophia visited, dragging Bella along. Sophia's face was smug, like she'd won some grand battle. I heard you pissed off the judge again. Got 2 more months, huh? When are you going to learn you can't fight the system? She sneered. Why are you here, Sophia? To gloat? All you're doing is acting out against the North Side. I don't need that. All I care about is seeing Bella regularly. It's Isabella, she snapped. I turned away, refusing to engage. She kept yelling until she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Moments later, Bella walked in, her face glowing with a mischievous smile. Why are you so happy? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Because I'm seeing my dad, she said brightly. That can't be the only reason, I teased. She grinned wider. I have a surprise for you, but I can't tell you yet. I need to think it through first. Oh, what's the plan? Do you trust me, Dad? With my life, I replied without hesitation. Her grin grew even bigger. She pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket and held it out. Then will you sign this without reading it first? I squinted at her, amused but cautious. What are you up to, Bella? You'll find out soon enough, she said playfully. I thought you trusted me. Smiling at her confidence, I signed it, noticing she'd carefully folded it so only the signature line showed. There, I said, handing it back. But you owe me an explanation later. She tucked the paper away, her eyes sparkling. Deal. We shifted the conversation to lighter things, school, friends, and how she was handling life with Sophia. As always, Bella's presence lifted the weight of my situation, even if just for a while. Mom said you did something to get 2 more months added to your sentence. Is it true? Bella asked, her eyes filled with curiosity. Yes, I admitted with a sigh. And I'm sorry, darling. What did you do? She pressed. I confronted the judge again, Bella smirked, leaning back in her chair. Well, whatever it was, he probably deserved it. We laughed softly, and the tension eased. We talked about her school, her mom, and how she was handling everything. She kept mentioning her school counselor, Dr. Olivia Carter, dropping little hints like she was trying to connect I couldn't quite see. Every time I tried steering the conversation back to the paper I'd signed, she'd shake her head. It's a surprise, she said firmly, her grin making me smile despite myself. After a while, I shifted the topic. I'm sorry I won't be there for your 16th birthday, I said softly. But the next time you visit, I'll have a present for you. Her eyes lit up instantly. What is it? It's a surprise, I replied, mirroring her earlier words with a grin. I guess we're both keeping secrets. As she stood to leave, I asked, can you do me a favor and ask Noah to visit me? I need to talk to him about something important. Of course, Daddy, she said warmly, her smile lingering as she walked out. Noah had been my trusted point man before I ended up behind bars. I'd left him handling critical business matters, but now I had another task, planning a surprise birthday party for Bella. Later that week, Noah arrived. He looked sharp, as usual, and gave me updates on everything I'd assigned him. Business was running smoothly, and it was clear he'd been managing things well. Once the business talk was out of the way, I leaned forward. I want to throw Bella a surprise birthday party. Noah raised an eyebrow, skepticism written all over his face. Are you sure? With everything going on? Absolutely, I replied without hesitation. She deserves something special. He nodded slowly. All right, I'll make it happen. Also, I added, reach out to Liam. Give him what I prepared. If he has questions, he can come to me. If not, send him to Logan. Noah chuckled softly. Logan always knows how to handle things your way. Exactly, I said, grinning. Logan had a knack for understanding my plans without needing every detail spelled out. He'd handle things while I kept my hands clean behind bars. By the end of the month, my reputation inside had grown. Word of my confrontation with the judge spread like wildfire. Jail's like a small town. News travels fast. Soon, everyone was calling me texts with a mix of respect and caution. Toward the end of the month, I had another visitor. Walking into the visitation room, I stopped short when I saw Sophia sitting there. My instinct was to turn around and leave, but her voice stopped me. Ethan, please wait. I need to talk to you, she said, her tone unusually earnest. I sighed, my patience thin. I have nothing to say to you, Sophia. She ignored me and pushed on. We're going to lose the house. You have to give me money to stop the foreclosure. I stared at her, unflinching. This is your house, Sophia. I never wanted it. You pushed me into it, and now it's your problem. Let the bank take it. Her voice cracked slightly. Ethan, you can't do this. You have to help me. I folded my arms. Ask your friends for help. I'm sure they have plenty of money. Tears welled in her eyes, her face contorted with frustration. Why are you doing this to me? I didn't hold back. Why did you lie to the judge and accuse me of mistreating our daughter? Her face went pale, completely still for a moment. Then the tears streamed down her cheeks. Without another word, I stood up and walked out, feeling an unexpected sense of relief. As the guard escorted me back to my cell, his radio crackled to life. Take him back to visitation. I expected to see Sophia still crying, but instead, I was surprised to find Bella sitting there, her face brightening when she saw me. Bella, I said, startled. Your mom didn't mention bringing you. She didn't bring me, Bella replied with a shrug. I wouldn't let her come here without me. I smiled, grateful to see her. I'm sorry I missed your birthday, I said softly, but I have a gift for you. Dad, she whispered, her voice full of warmth. I knew you'd miss it, and I don't care. I love you anyway. You don't have to get me anything. I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. I don't have the gift here, but I can tell you what it is. The house in Oak Forest, it's yours. It'll go into a trust for you when you turn 18. Her eyes lit up. When I get out of here, can I stay there? Of course, I replied with a grin. I'll even pay the rent. Her face glowed with excitement. Daddy, oh my God, you just removed a huge obstacle from my surprise. I still can't tell you what it is, but you'll understand soon. I love you so much. I love you too, honey, I said, my heart full. I couldn't stop wondering what her surprise could be. It had to involve our real home. Oak Forest, not that mansion Sophia clung to. We kept talking, and she mentioned Dr. Carter again. Was it possible she had a crush on him? I hoped he was professional. The thought lingered, but I trusted Bella's instincts. Still, I'd need to meet this guy when I got out. As the guard escorted me back to my cell, I couldn't help but grin, partly from the showdown with Sophia, mostly from my uplifting talk with Bella. The other inmates gave me curious looks. In prison, a smile often meant someone had been hurt. They'd never guessed that my smile was just pride and hope wrapped into one. One day, Logan visited. Everything's set, he said quietly, leaning forward. We had video evidence, Sophia, paralegals from her firm, some married, courtesans, and various lawyers being entertained. Even a few rising political stars and a judge I knew all too well. The pieces were falling into place. Their world was about to collapse, and I'd be watching from the sidelines, smiling. They thought they were untouchable, bragging about their power and influence. But people always underestimate the janitors, the invisible eyes and ears in every office. Offering one free rent for a year was all it took to get hidden cameras installed in conference rooms and offices. It was only a matter of time before we gathered enough dirt to destroy reputations. My brother would release the footage anonymously, stamped with a simple slogan, "Don't mess with Texas." The videos would hit key websites, major news outlets, and tabloids across the state. Politicians and lawyers would scramble to contain the damage as their carefully crafted images crumbled. I smiled at Logan. In a week, let the others know what to do next. "I will," he replied, his grin matching mine. As I walked back to my cell, the grin stayed plastered on my face. Mason caught sight of me, his eyes narrowing with curiosity. "Holy hell," he muttered, already guessing I'd spoken to Logan. I just nodded, my grin widening. When the tapes dropped, the buzz inside the prison was immediate. Lying on my bunk, I listened to whispers spreading through the corridors like wildfire. Even here, in this dark corner of the world, the news had traveled fast. "Don't mess with Texas," inmates murmured, the phrase echoing like an anthem. Not long after, one of the Sixes, the gang that had jumped me, stepped into my cell. A big guy, but his swagger was gone, replaced by something unfamiliar. "Respect? You're a bad dude," he muttered. "I'm sorry for what I did." I met his eyes, my voice calm. "I warned you not to mess with me. Some lessons come harder than others." He nodded. "I hope you'll accept my apology." I gave a slight shrug. "Sure. But remember, even big guys can fall hard." With nothing more to say, he turned and left. 3 days later, I was summoned to face the judge again. My lawyer was already there, waiting in the video room. "Wonder what this is about," he said, settling into his chair. "Time will tell," I replied. When the judge appeared on screen, his face was flushed with rage, his eyes burning with fury. "You did it," he roared. "Did what?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "You're Tex, aren't you?" he spat. "Some people call me that. You're going to pay for this." I leaned back, unimpressed. "I've been in jail for 4 months. How could I have done anything?" "You've got friends." "We all have friends, Your Honor," I replied dryly. "You're not getting away with this." "I don't know, Judge. Looks like you're the one facing the heat. I hear your wife's filing for divorce." That hit him hard. His face darkened, his jaw clenched tight. "Call off your dogs." "Calling my friends dogs? They might not like that. Corner a dog, and you might get bitten. Is that a threat?" "Just a saying. I'll make your life a living hell. When you leave this prison, you'd better watch your back. Someone's going to make you pay, and I'll enjoy watching it." He slammed the connection off. I turned to my lawyer. "Did you get that?" "Every word," he replied, holding up his phone. "The Bar Association's going to love this. Last I checked, intimidation's a crime in Illinois." A few days later, Sophia showed up for another visit. The moment I saw her, my mood soured. "Oh, it's you," I muttered, sitting down with a sigh. "Didn't I make it clear? I've got nothing left to say to you." "You fool," she snapped, her voice trembling with anger. "What now?" "You got me fired. My picture's everywhere, on the news, all over the internet. How could you do this to me?" I leaned back, arms crossed. "You did it to yourself. Do you hate me that much?" Her voice cracked. "Yeah. And your arrogant law buddies who thought they were untouchable." Her face crumpled, tears threatening to fall. "When we met, you were a sweet small-town girl. Now, you're just another selfish uptown witch. What am I supposed to do?" she sobbed. "No one will hire me." I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "Move back to Seymour. Stay with your folks." "I can't." She wiped her eyes. The local paper ran a headline, "Local girl at center of Chicago scandal. My parents are moving to Florida to avoid the gossip." "Well, Florida sounds perfect for you," I said coldly. "Far away from me. They don't want me there. They barely even talk to me anymore." "Wow," I said with mock surprise. "Your parents barely talk to you. Your daughter barely talks to you. Maybe the problem is you." She looked shattered but stayed silent. "You should move and start over. But don't even think about taking Bella. As soon as I'm out, I'm petitioning for custody." With your reputation? The court's going to rethink who's the better influence. You can't do that, she cried. She's all I have left. I don't care. You made this mess. We had a good life, but you threw it away. I paused, smirking. Here's an idea. You could work for one of your lawyer buddies. I bet there's still a market for nearly 40-year-olds. She stared at me, tears streaming down her face, then broke down completely, resting her forehead on the table as she sobbed. Sucks to be you, I muttered, without a shred of sympathy. Did you bring Bella? It's Isabella, she snapped through her sobs. And no, she's busy with that doctor friend of hers. Well, I said, standing up, then I've got nothing more to say to you. Don't bother coming back unless you bring Bella. I turned and walked away, leaving her sobbing at the table. But for the first time, I didn't feel any satisfaction. Seeing her so broken left me strangely hollow. The next day, I saw the night report. A fire had gutted the top floor of a 5-story office building downtown. Thanks to the sprinkler system, the lower floors were spared, but the damage above was total. I just smiled. The next day, Liam told me the law firm's external server had crashed, wiping out all their data. I didn't even try to hide my grin. A couple of weeks later, Bella came to visit. She must have convinced Sophia to bring her, but the moment she walked into the room, I knew something was different. She wore the biggest smile I'd ever seen. Bella, I said, my mood instantly lifting. You look so happy. What's going on? I finally finished my surprise for you, she exclaimed, practically bouncing with excitement. You'll never guess what it is. I chuckled. Well, based on our last conversation, it has something to do with the Oak Forest house. Don't tell me you and your mom moved there. She laughed. She'd live anywhere but there. But you're half right. I frowned slightly, trying to piece it together. What do you mean? Mom's being evicted from the Wilmette house, she explained, and I'm moving into the Oak Forest house. I blinked, completely caught off guard. How can you do that? The court gave her primary custody until you're of age. Bella's eyes sparkled with pride. I'm legally an adult now. I stared at her, stunned. Wait, what? She grinned triumphantly. I got emancipated. That's what Olivia and I have been working on for the past 2 months. Once you put the house in trust, everything fell into place. I needed a stable place to live, and our old neighborhood is perfect for me. So, let me get this straight, I said, still trying to process. You're officially an adult now? Exactly, she said, beaming. When things got rough at school, mostly because of everything happening at home, Dr. Carter helped me work through it. Now, once you're out of here, you can come home. I'm excited to go back to high school in Oak Forest. I've already reconnected with old friends. They can't wait for summer to end so school can start. I smiled, then said, I've heard a lot about this counselor of yours. I'd like to meet this Olivia guy. You're in luck, Bella replied, her grin widening. Olivia brought me here today. My smile faded slightly. He was driving her around Chicago? That didn't sit right with me. I needed to be careful. I didn't want to upset Bella, but I also needed to make it clear to Olivia that there were boundaries. When Bella returned, I was surprised. Instead of a man, a striking woman with raven black hair followed her in. She smiled warmly. How are you doing? She asked. I studied her face closely, something about her familiar. Then it hit me. Freddie? Her smile grew. I haven't heard that name in over 20 years. Freddie, now Olivia, was from my old neighborhood. She wasn't part of my crowd, but we'd gone to the same school. Bella glanced between us, clearly confused. Daddy, how do you know Dr. Carter? Freddie, Olivia, answered with a smirk. We grew up in the same neighborhood, but he barely noticed me. Turning to Bella, I explained, she was a couple of years behind me in school. We didn't really hang out. And you were a juvenile delinquent, Olivia added with a playful grin. Looks like some things never change. You're in your 40s now and still behind bars. My face flushed slightly. I've never been great at keeping my mouth shut. Clearly, she teased. I hear people call you Tex now, don't they? Why do they call him that? Bella asked, curious. That was his nickname as a teenager, Olivia explained. He always got even when someone crossed him. Your mom did something terrible to him, and judging by the news about the law firm, I'm betting Tex had a hand in that. I plead guilty, I said with a sly smile. Before we went further, Olivia turned serious. I hope you're okay with me spending time with Bella. It's Bella, she corrected with a grin. Right, Bella, Olivia said, smiling warmly. Then to me, when I started working with her about 9 months ago, she was struggling with everything going on. I wondered if she was related to you and Liam. Rivera isn't exactly common. When I found out her dad's name was Ethan, I wasn't sure. Until she mentioned you were in prison. Then I knew. She hesitated, then added, I felt awful, but I figured you must have turned things around since you had a house in Wilmette. It was just a house, I replied flatly. Never felt like home. Bella chimed in. Our real home is in Oak Forest. Southside, Olivia added, but a much better area than where we grew up. Yeah, I said quietly, a twinge of regret creeping in. If we'd stayed there, maybe things would have turned out differently. We sat in silence for a moment, lost in thought, before the conversation picked back up. Before they left, I pulled Olivia aside. I really appreciate you taking time to help Bella, I said. Thank you for guiding her through emancipation. It's made a huge difference. It's no problem, Tex, she replied softly. She's like family to me now. I've grown really attached to her. Thanks again. When I get out of here, we'll all go out to dinner. I'll hold you to that. If you ever get out, she teased with a wink. The next 2 weeks passed uneventfully, just the usual grind of prison life. But every Sunday, Bella and Olivia visited, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at ease knowing someone like Olivia was looking out for her. During one visit, Bella mentioned, Olivia has been helping me decorate the house. We've been picking out new furniture and decorations. Curious, I asked, where's the money coming from? Uncle Liam, of course, she replied. I've got money set aside for what I need. Right, I said with a nod. Just wanted to make sure Freddie wasn't paying for anything. She's done so much already, but this is something I needed to handle. Don't worry, Dad, Bella reassured me. It's all taken care of. I chuckled. I just hope it's not all girly stuff in there. I'd like to feel at home too. She laughed. Don't worry. Your man cave is still a man cave. She was referring to the basement, the space I'd renovated into my personal retreat back when life felt normal. Living with 2 women sometimes made me crave a little sanctuary, and that basement had been it. After they left, I lay in my cell, reflecting on how much Bella had grown. She wasn't a little girl anymore. She was fierce, independent, and more like me than I ever expected. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I thought I'd lost, hope. She was an adult now, taking control of her life. Soon, she'd be off to college, and who knew where life would take her. I thought about what my life would look like after she left, how I'd manage being alone, and whether I'd meet someone who appreciated life's simple pleasures the way I did. The following Monday, I had another visitor, Sophia. The moment I saw her, I turned to leave. Ethan, wait, she called after me. We need to talk. Reluctantly, I stopped and turned back. What now? I muttered, bracing myself. Do you know what our daughter did? She snapped, her tone sharp and accusatory. What are you talking about, Sophia? I asked warily. She got emancipated. Sophia blurted. She doesn't have to live with us anymore. She's already moved out, and I don't know where she is. Oh, that, I said, shrugging nonchalantly. So you knew, she hissed, narrowing her eyes. Did you encourage her to do it? No, I replied calmly. She did it herself, with help from her school counselor. She's staying with the counselor, isn't she? Sophia pressed. No, she's back home, on the south side. What about school? Sophia's frustration was boiling over. She'll be returning to Oak Forest in the fall, I said evenly. She hated that school in Wilmette, Sophia. They treated her like an outsider, a kid from the projects, as they called it. She never fit in with high society. You took her away from a place she loved, where she had real friends, and dropped her into an environment that crushed her self-esteem. You did more harm than good. I just wanted her to get a good education, Sophia shot back defensively. Kids learn more from their parents' example than they do in any classroom, I countered. We were her first teachers. What do you think your example taught her? Sophia hesitated, her defiance faltering. I hope it shows her what not to do, she whispered. Our job as parents is to raise responsible, good-hearted adults. I hope we've done that, and that she'll forgive our mistakes, especially the mess of our marriage. It wasn't all bad, Sophia said softly. No, I agreed, but it ended that way. I stood up, my chair scraping the floor. Sophia, I hope you find what you're looking for. Clearly, I wasn't it. Her face was etched with sadness and regret, but I didn't linger. I walked away. For a brief moment, I felt sorry for her, but only for a moment. The day of my release finally arrived. This time, I was summoned to an actual courtroom. Bella, Freddie, and Sophia were there. I noticed right away it was a different judge. Looked like the last one didn't survive the scandal. The new judge reviewed my case and then addressed me. Mr. Rivera, what do you have to say for yourself? I've served my original 6 months, plus 2 more, I replied simply. You could have apologized and walked free, he said. I didn't believe the other judge deserved an apology. So, I served my time. You're a stubborn man, he remarked. I prefer strong-willed. It served me well in business and life, I responded. The judge nodded slightly. The divorce agreement remains in effect. You must compensate for the months you didn't pay. My attorney stood. Your Honor, my client is prepared to pay $20,000 today, which covers his obligations and closes all financial ties with his ex-wife. Sophia shot up from her seat. What? He owes me more than that. He's supposed to keep paying until Isabella turns 18. The judge silenced her with a sharp look. Miss, I will handle this. Counselor, explain your calculations. My client covered the down payment for spousal support, mortgage, and insurance, my lawyer explained. He continued to pay for his daughter's insurance and needs throughout his incarceration, but couldn't pay spousal support or the mortgage due to lack of income. With the foreclosure on the house and the child's recent emancipation, spousal obligations ceased 3 months ago. The final amount owed is $19,782, which he will round up to $20,000. The judge reviewed the documents, then nodded. If these figures are accurate, I'll accept the payment. He turned to both of us. You share a daughter, now legally an adult, but still a teenager with needs. She deserves a stable, respectful environment. Can I count on you to remain civil? He looked at me first. Mr. Rivera? Yes, Your Honor, I replied. Then to Sophia. Mrs. Rivera? Yes, Your Honor, she muttered. Finally, he turned to our daughter. And you, Isabella? It's Bella, she corrected. Yes, Your Honor. The judge smiled faintly. If the evidence holds, this case will be closed. Mr. Rivera, you're free to go. Thank you, Your Honor, my attorney said. As we left the courtroom, Bella ran into my arms, hugging me tightly. Freddie smiled warmly, but across the room, Sophia approached, bitterness etched into every line on her face. $20,000? That's all I get, she spat. Why did you choose them over me? They can help you, but what about me? Remembering the judge's plea for civility, I kept calm. Let's stay respectful, for Bella's sake. It's Isabella, Sophia hissed. Our daughter, I corrected softly. She glared. Fine, but I have no job, no home. What now? You can get another job, I said evenly. As for housing, I'll let you stay in one of my apartments, rent-free for 6 months. Help you get back on your feet. Move back to the south side, she sneered. It's free rent, I replied. Take it or leave it. She huffed and walked away without another word. I turned to Bella and Freddie. Ready to go? Of course, they replied in unison. Freddie, I owe you a nice dinner, I said. How about RPM Italian? I booked it as soon as I got my release date. Sophia's face twisted. RPM had been our place. I ignored her. The reservation's for 6:30, I added. Want to take a drive first? I need to feel free again. Turning to Freddie, I asked, could your husband join us? Freddie's expression froze, but Bella quickly stepped in. Daddy, she doesn't have a husband anymore. I glanced at Freddie's wedding ring, confused. She spoke softly. My husband died in a car accident 5 years ago. I never took off the rings. Feels like letting go completely. I'm so sorry. I had no idea, I said quietly. It's okay, she replied with a small smile. I'd love to join you tonight. Dinner was amazing. Real clothes, good food, and freedom. As we left the restaurant, I turned to Freddie. When you're ready, could I take you on a real date? No rush. Just whenever it feels right. Freddie smiled warmly. I'd like that. Bella grinned. Daddy, she's stuck with us now. Freddie laughed. Wouldn't have it any other way. When we arrived home, I was overwhelmed. The house was refreshed and welcoming. I broke down, tears streaming as Freddie whispered softly, "Welcome home." She slipped off her wedding rings, and we embraced. In the end, Bella gained more than her freedom. She found a family. Eventually, Freddie and I had twins, Frederick and Olivia's, named in her honor. Sophia remarried a wealthy attorney, chasing the status she'd always craved. But she never found the happiness she thought it would bring. As for me, I finally found peace.